Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Co-Angler's Corner, brought to you by Olson Home Theater. I'm Russell Olson. Today on this show, what I'd like to do is continue our series on soft plastics and rigs, kind of get more in depth into the individual rigs, and on today's Frugal Muse book Spotlight Bait, we're going to be talking about plastic worms. Before I get started into that, though, I'd like to talk about an experience I had last month. I was at the Bassmaster Elite Series event in Crosse, Wisconsin. Actually, I was up there for the third time. It's really awesome when you get to go to one of those events. First of all, you get all the kinds of free stuff, plus getting to actually see the anglers and talk to them. And I haven't had a chance to speak to Kevin Van Dam, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him in person since the first Madison Fishing Expo I went to, probably at least 10 years ago, I would think, if not more. So that was a really good experience. Congratulations to Ott Defoe for winning it. That was really awesome. It was his first Bassmaster Elite Series victory. If you ever get a chance to go to one, go. I mean, just being a spectator, it's awesome experience. Of course, every angler I would would give anything to fish the Elite Series. It'd be absolutely awesome. So first thing I want to get into today is the rig I'm going to talk about is the Texas rig. The Texas rig, pretty simple rig. Of course, you got your line, you got your bullet weight, and obviously you got your hook. Now, there's various hooks that can be used with this, depending on the bait you're using. Whatever your preference is, really. First thing I'll do is I'll start with the line. As far as line goes, the lightest line you can get away with, the better. Obviously, you're not going to be using 4 or 6 pound line and weeds so thick that you pull up a salad every time you pull your bait in. But if you can get away with, if you're in a situation where you're working a flat or a drop off with not a lot of cover, not a lot of things that can fray your line. On the river, though, watch out for zebra mussels, because you think you're not running anything, and then a zebra mussel will run that across that. You'll either it'll just snap off there, or fish hooks into it. You go to set the hook, he's gone. But yeah, like I said, light as possible. Now, if I get into heavier lines, when I can, I do try to use fluorocarbon if I have to go heavier. Just gives me that confidence that with fluorocarbon line, it's really not even supposed to be visible to the fish. So that gives me a little extra confidence. Weight, again, usually it's a bullet weight. Actually, I've never used a Texas rig with anything else other than a bullet weight. But when you can, use tungsten, because with tungsten you get a heavier weight with a smaller profile. So that's why, that's the main reason why tungsten weights are so popular, is because you can get a heavier weight with a smaller profile. But again, I prefer to use the lightest weight I can, especially if conditions really require more of a finesse presentation, because the lighter that bait falls, the more natural, the slower it's going to be, the more time that the fish is going to have to look at it. Especially more time that, especially if you're fishing suspended fish or fish a little bit further off the bottom, it'll have more time in front of the fish, give them more opportunity to strike it, hopefully. The next thing is the hook. This in particular is more of a worm hook. It's got the shank to hopefully help hold the worm on. Sometimes that doesn't always work. There is actual special fishing glue that you can get for either holding plastic baits on, or like say if you're fishing a jig, help you keep your jig trailer on. Sometimes I have trouble, depending on the skirt, I have trouble keeping the skirts on, so that glue really, really works well. So as far as how you would rig this, you take. I'm just going to use this worm here as an example. You find the bottom. This is considered really the bottom of your bait. This bottom of your bait. You take the hook, put it in, maybe a quarter, well, a half inch would be too much, between maybe a quarter and 3/8 in. You push it up like that. Now, you see how this is supposed to hold it? Obviously, because it's almost kind of like a L shape, or it's more than 90, more than 40, or excuse me, more than 90 degrees. That's supposed to hold it on. Then, what you do, you take your hook. There's a few different ways you can hook a bait, depending on the bait you're using. Take that hook. And it all depends on also the type of plastic that you're using too, and how hard it is to get the hook through that type of plastic. You can just put your worm just in, and then when a bass bites it, the idea is when he bites it and you set the hook, that hook is supposed to expose itself like that. Now, another way of hooking the bait, I especially like doing this with tubes, sweet beavers, even crab type baits, even creature baits. It's called text-posed. Well, basically, what you do, you determine where the longest part, furthest back part of the hook is going to come through the bait. Okay? And you take it. You put your hook in right at that point. Oh, and by the way, too, the idea too when you're hooking your bait is keep everything even with the seam on the bottom, because if you don't, it will cause line twist, and especially if you're going on lighter tackle like a spinning rod or something like that. The nature of that, how those reels work, it'll cause a line twist real bad. But you got your hook through here, and your hook's exposed. But what you do, you take that bait, you pull it forward just enough, and you stick the point of the hook through. Just like that. So it stays completely weedless. And in some cases, it's actually easier depending on the hook, and again, depending on the hook and the bait you're using. It's easier to get better hookups this way, because all your hook point's got to do is just slip out when you're going to set the hook. So you get a really good hookup ratio with this. So, and the nice thing, one of the biggest advantages of a Texas rig, it's really weedless. Now, some people, I personally don't, but some people do. They will put a peg or bobber stopper or something to keep this hook, or keep the weight from sliding down. I personally don't, but I mean, each their own. I could see how it could be advantageous either way. I think it probably helps it be a little more weedless, but I don't know. I feel like it could present some negative cues to the fish, because if that weight's not in his mouth, in reality, all he'll feel is that soft plastic, and that is until you go to set the hook and put the hook through his lip. Um, but then again, you do with if the weight doesn't slide, you do feel it a little bit better, I think. Um, you just have to try it both ways and see which one works out better for you. Um, this rig is really versatile. You can use it in a lot of conditions. You can use it, finesse fishing. Um, you can use it if you use a ounce to ounce and a half or more tungsten. You can use it for plunking, the really super thick weeds. One thing, if the conditions are a little windier, you probably will need to use a little bit heavier bait. I know, but when you can, you can use lighter hooks, lighter tackle. It actually helped me catch fish. It was last 2 years ago, year or 2 years ago when we were at Silver. I don't remember what else I tried that day, and I couldn't get a bite. But then I went to a rig like this, real small on actually even on spinning gear. And then I went with a green with a red flake finesse worm, and I started, catching fish. Ended up with, actually three, probably should have had four because I had one come off, which is actually pretty rare because I'm really consistent about sharpening my hooks. So it's extremely versatile. You can use a lot of different baits on it. You can use, you can use like flukes or Zulus, or if you're even with Senkos, if you're looking for a little bit different presentation, if you're looking more of a, instead of just letting it fall, if you want it to die, I mean, you can use it for even real thin, even real, you have to be, I'd say really light hook, if even a hook on, or excuse me, really light weight, even if even if you use a weight at all, like a robo worm, when you're trying to be, be real finesse. So, next season I would, really suggest getting used to that Texas rig, and that is actually going to lead us into this episode's Frugal Muse Books Spotlight Bait. Hi folks, keeping with our series on soft plastics, this week's Frugal Muse Spotlight Bait is going to be basically the plastic that really started it all, the plastic worm. There are a few different styles I'm going to go over today. This is going to be our first one. This is probably the one that really started all, the twister tail worm. It's pretty basic. The sizes range anywhere from 3-4 inches all the way up to 10 inches or more. They have various shapes, sizes, in this case size of tail. This is really an example of one of the baits that started all the way back in the day. A lot of fish have been caught on these type of worms. I've had some success with them. I guess they're not they're not the in bait quite as much, I don't think, but they still catch fish. They're a good bait. A lot of companies make them. A lot of these will still catch fish. This type of worm, it's very versatile. I can swim it, and you take advantage of the twister tail. You can also hop it. You can just crawl it, and you can just simply work it through the weeds. Like I said, it's very versatile, and it still catches fish. The next bait I want to talk about, or the next worm I should say, is a worm. I actually touched on it earlier in the episode when I was talking about my sort of my day on Silver Lake a year or two ago. This is a finesse worm. It's pretty much well, not totally straight, but it's a straight tail. It doesn't have, um, it's not a twister tail. It's just a pretty basic worm. It's this type of worm, I would say, really is for those times when you really need that finesse presentation. This type of worm, this is, like I said, this is the worm I use on my text rig. That's what I was telling you guys a little bit ago. You can also use it on you can also use on a shaky head. That's another finesse type presentation of these type of worms. This particular worm I like because it's got kind of a flatter bottom. It's kind of easy to determine where to put the hook through, and it's just I've had a lot of really good luck with these type of baits. This particular one is made by a company called Pro Tour Baits, but there's a lot of companies that make great baits, and sizes, shapes vary, but they've got kind of the same general concept. They're not meant to be a really wiggly, exciting bait. This is really meant to be a good finesse bait, a very subtle bait. If you're having a tough day and conditions are kind of odd, if you've got a few of these with you, I take a few different colors, and I'll go into colors with these baits in a little bit. But I would definitely give this a try. Try it, like I said, try it on a Texas rig. Try it on a shaky head. Try it on a Texas rig without weight on it. It all depends on the conditions. It's like I said, it's a very versatile bait. Now the last bait type that I'm going to talk about today is one I think I may have discussed it before, but it definitely, especially being one of the leading baits, especially I would say at least over the last decade, as far as soft plastics go, and actually one that's become one that I don't care where I'm fishing, cloud cover, weeds, grass, rocks, whatever. I've got one of these tied on with me of one rigging or another. The Senko. Now this actually is, I believe, a Yo Mama, I think it's called, from Pro Tour Baits. But the original one of these was made by Gary Yamamoto, by Yamamoto Custom Baits. Like I said, Yum has their version, the Dinger. Several bait companies have their own version. Some of them work better than others simply because some of them have more of that subtle action than others, and then there's the minor differences make the difference. Couple different ways that I like to rig this. A lot of times I'll rig it basically Texas style, like I showed earlier. And this is definitely a bait that I do Tex pose the hook. Just a lot less plastic you have to go through, and it's still weedless. The other way, and a way that I really prefer, simply because I feel like it really lets the bait provide its natural action a little bit more. But the disadvantage of it is, especially if you're in a lot of weeds, this way you can catch a lot of weeds with it, is wacky style. Now, one thing I personally like to do with my wacky rigs, I don't put them just dead center. I like to bring mine forward ever so slightly. And then thing you can do if you have a thick enough worm is you can put it in just enough to catch the barb of the hook, and hopefully maybe keep it a little more weedless. But a lot of times I prefer to rig it on the worm like that. Stays on the worm better, you get better hookups. One thing you can do is you can use a hook that's got basically a weed guard on it, kind of just hooks under the hook. It helps to keep it weedless. It's something I've had good success on, especially on a lake called Little Green. That's where I caught one. That's how I actually caught one of my biggest bass ever. Is using it wacky rig with the weedless hook on it. So that's basically the story on the different types of plastic worms. Throughout the episode, I've discussed a little bit about different riggings. Like I said, mostly about the Texas rig. As far as colors go, conditions really tell me that. I mean, if it's a bright sunny day, clear water, I'll try to use like a green pumpkin, and bottom conditions too. Sometimes if the bottom is more brown, sometimes I'll use a brown. I'll experiment a little bit with that, especially with clear water. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard to tell. If for like darker water, I like to use black. I like to use sometimes something contrasting. What I'll sometimes do is I'll take like say for example this worm, say if it were a black worm, one thing I could do is dip the tail in a little bit of spike it dye so I can have some contrasting colors that help the fish see it a little bit better. Sometimes if it's really clear too, sometimes I'll use a white or a shad color, something to represent a shad. So I mean you have to experiment, but those are that's kind of where I start. Sometimes I like black and blue, but those are kind of my main colors: white, brown, green pumpkin, and black. Those are kind of my main colors, and the colors I prefer when it comes to plastic worms. It helps keep it simple. Kind of gives you a start. I do have a few other colors outside of that, but those are the main ones I gravitate to. So, and I thank you for watching, and I wish you luck on the water. That'll be it for today's episode. I hope what we've talked about today will help you be a better angler. I'd like to thank my sponsor, Frugal Muse Books. You mentioned Co-Angler's Corner at checkout, and you'll get a 10% discount. And also, too, if you'd like to make money while helping people change their lives and feed starving kids in America, feel free to email me at olsonhometheater@gmail.com, and I'll personally respond with information. Take care and wish you luck from the back of the boat this season.